You're listening to Blaxit Radio with on-air personalities in Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, and Tanzania. Playing smooth jazz, quiet storm, R&B, reggae, and the very best talk, 24/7.
So without further ado, let's welcome Luther to the show.
Hello, everyone. Hello, my name is Luther McGinnis.
I'd like for if you could start off with telling us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you do, whatever you want us to know about your background or whatever.
Born in Indiana, but raised in Nashville, music capital. So I left Indiana really young. I don't remember the place, but when I was, I think 6 months, my mom moved me to her hometown, which is Birmingham, Alabama. And I was there until 3. And then from 3 on, I was in Nashville because she got a job as a professor at Meharry Medical College. My mom was a research microbiologist and professor. And so she worked her career, the entire tenure of her career was at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, which is an HBCU. So I was raised in Nashville from age 3 on. And I dived into music at age 9 officially. I started piano lessons and I was singing even before that. So, but that's and I'm of course I'm a world traveler and I'm definitely a Blaxit member, which we'll discuss. Discuss later.
Well, I met you when you were here in Costa Rica. I don't know how long has that been? Maybe like about a little over
year and a
half or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose to come to Costa Rica and a little bit about your life when you were in Costa Rica, maybe why you left, good things, bad things.
Okay. So Costa Rica, I was there really for a teaching job. I didn't have to necessarily go to Costa Rica because Costa Rica was just opening up from COVID restrictions. I was trying to get to Costa Rica as early as 2020 and I could not go because the airport was literally closed to all incoming flights. And so the earliest I could get there really was, I think they opened Costa Rica in like October or November 2020, the airport. Right. And so at the time I was in Seattle and of course that was great news. So I was currently working and saving, and I think I stayed, I was on a temp job. I stayed till February of 21. And I was scheduled to go to Costa Rica the end of February. I had already passed because what I was doing, I was teaching English in Costa Rica. I had already passed my exam or certification for TEFL, which is teaching English as a foreign language. And I was going to utilize that in Costa Rica. And I could have done it online. Actually, I did do it online. So I could have stayed in the States, but I chose to be on the ground in Costa Rica in person. And so I applied in San Jose at a couple of schools. And the school that hired me normally is in person. It's actually brick and mortar school in Costa Rica. But what happened was that they still wasn't really opening they still wasn't letting students on campus due to COVID. Because Costa Rica took the whole COVID thing very seriously. Very, very serious, way more seriously than far more seriously than the United States. So a lot of the schools and institutions and restaurants and venues and clubs, everything was still kind of closed. And so they relegated me to just teach the classes online. I didn't care. I just wanted to just get out and just be in Costa Rica on the ground. And so I did that. And I really thoroughly enjoyed Costa Rica, the first couple of months especially. But as you know, when you're going to, if anybody who's had Blaxit experiences to different places, there's a honeymoon period because it's new. It's new. So like the first 2 or 3 months was very, interesting and intriguing to me. And then after the honeymoon period, it kind of, the reality sets in like, oh, you have to really adjust and immerse yourself into the culture and you have to be able to adapt. And So Costa Rica, I think, was really not a very challenging place to adapt to, because it's very, in my opinion, it's very Americanized already. However, there are some inconveniences that you have to deal with. Things are quite maybe not as accessible. Things close early in Costa Rica. It's a very early rise, go to bed early type of country. People are up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. culturally, and they're in bed by 10 o'clock usually. And the whole everything is shut down by 10. I mean, you're not going anywhere after 10 o'clock anyway. So it's not necessarily party central, but again, at the time I was going in the spring of 21, it was like towards the late winter, like end of February, early March of 21. And I stayed pretty much through the fall the fall, like September. End of September is when I left. It was still kind of closed or restricted due to COVID. So a lot of things still were kind of closed. But, on a whole, on a normal times, like right now it's normal, everything's open. It's still not a late night party central type of country. Mm-hmm. My overall impression is that it's a beautiful place. It's full of nature. It is very much pure. They definitely live up to that in the culture. It's no drama, non-confrontational, not all this negative energy that you have in the States. All of those things were huge positives. Definitely lowers your blood pressure. The only thing is that if you're younger, or if you're still kind of like in working on a career, I think unless it's online, it's kind of challenging to stay there long periods of time, because it's like I said, it's filled with nature and stuff like that. But cultural institutions might be lacking. It's not Mexico or some countries in South America where there's a lot of cultural things to peruse there.
Right.
You do have the Jade Museum. You do have the Gold Museum in San Jose. I mean, you have there's beautiful churches, like I think like in Cartago. It's a beautiful church in Cartago,
right,
which is an hour east of San Jose. I didn't get over there, but I went to another church, I think north of that, because I really love architecture. So it has a few things, but it's not what you would consider what a large, I guess, Latin American metro area would offer. And San Jose is the only metro area in Costa Rica.
How did you find the expenses, living expenses? Like, did you find it like Costa Rica? Did you feel like it was an expensive place to live? Affordable?
It can be, but I mean, it depends on your budget and how you choose to live your lifestyle. If you live like a Tico, it's very affordable. Right. And Ticos live very modestly, but you cannot come down. See, Costa Rica or any other country that you move to is a learning experience. You cannot come down to Costa Rica and expect to live the same way that you live in the States, because it's going to be very expensive. It can be very expensive, depending on where you're coming from. From California, no, it's not expensive at all.
Right.
From New York, it's not. No, not at all expensive. But like if you're coming from, let's say, Dallas or Atlanta, it could be. I think it's competitive with Atlanta or Dallas. It can be if you choose to live the way you live there. Right. It can be very competitive. But if you kind of downsize and your life and your lifestyle, it can be very affordable. You have to give up some conveniences and understand that this is a different country, and you're not going to have everything as accessible as you're used to it in the United States, which can be a good or a bad thing. My thing is that I just, like I said, I just noticed that Costa Rica is excellent if you just want to just kind of just downsize your life and just retire. And just really everything that the United States and not even just the United States, what the first world capitalist society is about. If you just want to detach from that and divest from that, Costa Rica is perfect. Right. But if you're really trying to do other things and you're still kind of in the midst of your career and it's not online per se, then Costa Rica probably would make a good part-time home, but maybe not full year round. All year long, yeah.
Well, when you were in Costa Rica, did you go around and live in different parts of Costa Rica, or were you primarily just in one area?
Just pretty much the Central Valley. I did get out to Puerto Viejo, which I loved. I love Puerto Viejo. But on a living, I know when I was looking at Airbnbs in Puerto Viejo to stay like long term, like month to month, and they're kind of pricey. They're kind of pricey. I think you might have to like actually get over there and just talk to locals and talk to private owners, not necessarily stuff that's like on advertised online to get deals because Puerto Viejo is actually growing in popularity, and it's actually getting a lot more diverse in terms of tourism. It's not just us there. It's a lot of European tourists. And so it's not as expensive as the west coast of Costa Rica, but it's going up, the prices and everything. So you just, again, even with the coastal areas, if you live like a Tico and downsize some conveniences, then it can be affordable.
Right.
And so I think at the time, I think it just depends on the person, but there were certain things I wasn't willing to give up. And so Costa Rica, I think it wasn't very expensive, but it was competitive with some places that I've lived. And that's only because of me wanting a certain lifestyle. It all depends on you and what you can deal with and what you can't. Some people can give up everything.
Right.
And that works for them, because I've met people there that actually could just really live very basic.
Right.
And it works. It definitely works.
Right. And also depends on, what area you want to live in, because when we were in Gracia, it was considerably less expensive than it is now that we've moved to Escazú. So I understand. And you kind of have to just decide, what's more important. You know what I mean? And then if you have the budget and you feel like it's worth it, you move to someplace to the standard of what you want. You know what I mean? People sometimes come over to Costa Rica and I think they think, oh, it's going to be $300 a month for rent or whatever. But that's not the Costa Rica of today. You know what I mean?
Right. It was that way not too long ago.
It was,
yeah.
But it isn't anymore.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your travels, because you left Costa Rica and I think did you go to Colombia? Anyway, let's talk a little bit about just your travels in general. Tell us where you've been, why you went there, and maybe some of the pluses and minuses of living in these different countries.
Okay, so the first place I went to after I left Costa Rica was with Mexico.
Oh, Mexico.
If you remember, I remember talking to you at the time. I went to Merida first.
Oh yeah, I said it was hot.
You said it was too hot, and it was. It was really, really hot. Again, I think Merida was it was affordable. It actually was affordable. You're going to deal with heat all year long, but it has a lot of conveniences. I think it has probably a bit more conveniences in terms of your American chain restaurants. They have a plethora of them, even more so than Costa Rica.
And shopping.
And shopping. Yeah, they have great shopping malls. And of course, AC is a requirement, because it's just hot. But so it was a nice respite change of scenery from Costa Rica. And then the beach is not far away from it's only like 20 miles from Merida. Merida is not that far in. It's like 20 miles north of Merida. You have the Gulf Coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. That's the Yucatan Peninsula. And then also when I was in Merida, I went to Cancun, and that's on the East Coast. Merida is like on the northwest side of Yucatan Peninsula. So it was a good month that I was there. And I was also in Mexico City for a week, but I've also been in Mexico City for about 2 months, actually. That was the year before that, in 2020. That was only because I could not go to Costa Rica. So I was like, you know what, I'm still leaving. I just went to Mexico and hung out for 2 months.
Well, you certainly get the architecture in Mexico.
Mexico, you got the culture, you got
wonderful.
The architecture.
It is. It's like, oh my God.
And then while I was there, I definitely went to Acapulco. Check that out.
Ooh.
And Puerto Vallarta. Acapulco was beautiful, because they said that Acapulco was not really a tourist trap, and it's not as it was back in the 80s or 90s.
Right,
it's not
it changed. It used to be one of the destination points.
Top destination in Mexico, but it's not anymore. But it's still very nice. I think probably because the drug cartels took over and it kind of drove all the tourists out. But I felt fine. And this was like in the height of COVID, like I think July of 2020. And then also that same time, I took a flight from Mexico City to Puerto Vallarta, went there for the first time. So, and Puerto Vallarta was wonderful. It's like Puerto Vallarta is like, they call it the San Francisco of Mexico. So it's a huge gay community there. And so that was the other thing I was kind of missing in Costa Rica, was that I didn't really see a centralized gay community. Not that that's a requirement,
Right.
but you kind of do miss community if you're a member of the LGBTQI community.
Is
So
there a community at all?
in Costa Rica, I mean, not officially,
No.
but there is like Manuel Antonio, from what I understand, is like is the gay enclave for Costa Rica. Unofficially, Manuel Antonio.
I did not know that. Okay.
You have a lot of Airbnbs and a lot of hotels that cater to gay tourists. And you have a lot of gay hotel owners as well in that small enclave around Manuel Antonio. It's Manuel Antonio and the adjacent communities around there. So I didn't know that at the time when I first went to Costa Rica. I got to Manuel Antonio like within 2 weeks of me arriving in Costa Rica. But as I lived there longer, I was finding out other things while I was there. And then after I left Costa Rica, I found out even more stuff. Then also understand the time I was there, a lot of stuff was closed as well. Right. So if I were to go to Costa Rica now,
it would be completely different.
It would be completely different. But I mean, in terms of a huge centralized gay community that's just official, no, not really. But it seems.
How do you think they treat gay people in Costa Rica in general? Now this a broad stroke, gay people, and then secondly, in Costa Rica, how do you think they treat Black people or Black males or Black gay males, if you think that's a difference? And compare that to Mexico. If you have
Okay. So well, let's talk about Costa Rica first, and we go to jump to Mexico. So Costa Rica, their Pura Vida applies to all.
Mm.
There are no biases. There's no hangups. It is a very religious Catholic country, yes. But whatever, they could probably think negative things about you, but they're not going to let you know. So that is one thing I did pick up on, whether it's gay or otherwise.
Anything.
Anything. If they don't like you, they're going to keep it to themselves.
Right.
They're going to treat you with the utmost respect and even nice to you.
Which is really all you can expect from anybody. That's all you really want, really. Like if they allow you to do what you need to do, they're not spitting on you and treating you differently.
None of that.
If they don't like you, who cares?
Yeah, none of that. And so they're non-confrontational. They're very peaceful, beautiful people, whether it's genuine or not. And so as far as to answer to all your questions about Costa Rica, as a Black man, I felt no racism whatsoever.
All right.
I felt free to walk around the stores. No one followed me around. It's none of that racial profiling that you see in the United States. You're treated, especially if they know that you're American, they're going to treat you like a gringo. Right. You're no different than a white gringo in their eyes.
Right.
They see the fact that you're a gringo first, and then color secondary, if they even judge you based on your color at all. I don't think they have a race problem or a racial bias situation in Costa Rica. They don't. Yeah. As far as the gay thing, yes, the Catholic religion is against homosexuality or being openly gay, but you would never know it. They would not let you know that they have an issue with it, if they have an issue at all. There are so many gay people in Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. I was actually had invited on a date while I was there. So, but the guy stood me up, but that's another story.
No.
But beautiful guy, but he just I don't know, he stood me up. But there's plenty of gay Costa Ricans. So I don't think, and especially among the younger population, younger Ticos, they don't really care. Right. But like the traditional culture would suggest maybe they're not so open because of the Catholic religion. But if there's any biases that they have personally, they will not express that to you.
Right.
That's what I've
for tourism.
Yeah, so that's good for tourism.
Yeah.
Mexico, they do have an official gay zones and gay neighborhoods. Like in Mexico, they have Zona Rosa, which is basically along the main avenue in Mexico City. I know you know what I'm talking about. It's near that big park.
Yeah.
With the castle. Mm-hmm. And they have a bunch of gay clubs and everything lining the streets. So yeah, it's nothing like that in Costa Rica at all. But they do have it in Mexico City and Puerto Vallarta, the Malazon neighborhood. Plenty of gay clubs and restaurants. Just tons of stuff.
I think there is an abundance in Puerto Vallarta. When we were thinking about moving there, I ran into like lots and lots of people in entertainment, lots of people owning, different businesses and properties or whatever there. And it appeared to me in Puerto Vallarta that people just got along. I didn't see where there was really any discrimination per se.
Mhm.
Did you when you were there?
No, when I was there, I mean, all four cities I was in Mexico, nothing.
Wow.
I mean, my race was never a factor. I never felt any racism whatsoever. And I actually was in Mexico City for 2 months. Nothing like that.
Wow.
It was such a breath of fresh air
Yeah.
because at the same time in the United States, this George Floyd thing was happening.
Yeah.
And it was like night and day difference. It was like night and day difference. And Mexico is like nowhere from the United States, but they just do not have a lot in these Latin American countries, not just Mexico, but pretty much all of Latin America. They don't see everything through race and color.
Right.
It's about nationality. It's about
Right.
where you're
Yeah,
from.
first. Mhm.
Forget your race. We could care less about your color. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the attitude I got.
Right.
You know, I never felt profiled or anything. As far as the gay thing in Mexico, they have such gay awareness, and they have full-on gay pride in Mexico City. You know, every year the gay pride in Mexico City is huge. You know, I think it's one of the largest in Latin America, if not the largest.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have huge gay pride celebrations every June in Mexico City. So I mean, no, I never felt either. But when I was there at the time in Mexico City, again, a lot of the clubs was closed due to COVID. But as far as homophobia, as far as racism, nada.
No.
Mm-mm.
What was your favorite place in Mexico? What city do you think you like the best?
Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I've been to Cabo too, but I like Puerto Vallarta better.
So after you left Mexico, where else did you go? Or have you been to other places?
I did go to Colombia, just out of curiosity on my own.
What'd you think about Colombia?
Colombia was intense.
Which part? Where were you? Were in Medellin or?
I was in Cartagena. Cartagena first. And I went to Medellin, but I was in Cartagena first. Cartagena was my first impression of Colombia. I think what happened was after I left Mexico, I went to Atlanta for a week to celebrate my birthday. And then from Atlanta, I flew straight from Atlanta to Cartagena. And I was in Colombia pretty much till the end of 2021. Like I was there for like 6 weeks or something. Cartagena was so intense. It reminded me of like a small version of Rio, Brazil. It was so many of our people. It was so many Black people in Cartagena.
Boy, that's different.
I didn't realize there was so many Black people in Cartagena. I was like, oh my God. And then I started researching or learning about the history of Cartagena and Colombia in general. And Cartagena was a big slave port. A third of the slaves that went to South America continent went straight to Colombia. And then 40% of them, or probably even as much as 50%, went to Brazil. But a good third of them went to Colombia. And that's why you see so many Black people along the coast. And they have their own community also called the Palenque. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
I think that's the way to pronounce it.
But it's an entire 100% Black community. And it's a lot of Palenque women. They carry the baskets on their heads like the African ancestors, and they're dressed in the colors of the Colombian flag, and they have their customs, and it's totally cut off from main Colombian society. It's like maybe an hour outside of Cartagena. But Cartagena itself was such an electric city, intense experience, full of African culture. I saw dancing in the street. Many times I felt like I was in Africa. Probably the closest comparison in South America would be like probably San Salvador on the northeast coast of Brazil in the Bahia state.
Right.
Which brings me to like later this year in August, I'm going to Brazil for the first time. I have to go.
Oh, where are you going?
When am I going?
Where?
Sao Paulo and Rio. But I really would like to go. I can't fit in the north, but I really would like to go to Bahia too. I'm gonna have to go back to Brazil.
Yes, I want to go there too.
It's such a huge country, but San Salvador reminds you of an African port city. It's so African. And that was an early slave trade port, and that's what Cartagena kind of reminds you of. Right. And so it was just a learning experience about how Colombia got set up in South America in general, and how pretty much 90% of the slaves went to the Caribbean and South America. Only 10% of the slaves went to the United States,
I
which
know,
blew my mind.
interesting, huh? Mine too. Like, what?
I did not know only 10% of the slaves from Africa went to
Yeah.
what is now known as the United States. The rest went to the Caribbean and not Colombia, but South America.
South
So
Brazil. Yeah.
it's
Wow.
just it just blew my mind, just the history. The buildings dating back to the 16th century to the 1500s. There goes your architectural, there goes your cultural institutions, all the things that was missing in Costa Rica. Now, fast track to 2022, I'm back in Colombia because now I have a teaching job there. So I'm on contract. I'm going back to Colombia, not as a tourist, but to work.
Right.
So I was in Colombia for 6 months teaching, and it was not on the coast. And the coast is the Caribbean is very black, but the inland Colombia is not. It's more mestizo. It's more mestizo. So that's Medellin, that's inland, mestizo. Cundinamarca or Bogota, where the capital region is, that's mestizo also. So it's a mix of Indian, mainly European, and very few blacks. I didn't hardly see any blacks in that region of Bogota. And Medellin has more blacks than Bogota, but they're still kind of minority. Cartagena, Barranquilla on the coast of Caribbean, the north coast of Colombia, Barranquilla, Cartagena, Santa Marta, all black, or not all black, but like 70-80% black.
How do they treat us in Cartagena as gringos or whatever?
Americans, if they know that you're American, they're gonna treat you as a gringo.
Okay.
But I had a lot of people coming up to me, oh, you the same color as me, you the same color as me. As if that's supposed to help me make a transaction with you because we're the same color,
Right.
But no, but it was Cartagena. I was constantly being hit up by people selling me stuff. It was annoying. Like I don't know if you've ever been to Cartagena, but it's like every 2 seconds somebody's running up to you trying to sell you something.
No, but I used to have that the first time I went to Mexico, when I went to Cancun. This was ages ago. I couldn't even hardly get down the street.
Mm-hmm. That's how it is in Cartagena. Yeah. You can't go to the beach. You can't do anything. Even at restaurants where you're trying to eat, the people will walk up to you with their kids. The kids are trying to sell you stuff. I'm like, and I saw the same thing in Acapulco, but in Cartagena, it's intense. Okay. So I didn't like that. But when I went to Medellin, all of that, you don't see that in Medellin. Medellin is really nice. It's upscale. You have like a lot of the money and the wealth that's in Colombia is concentrated in the inland areas like Medellin and also in some parts of Bogota. But Medellin and the Antioquia province where it's located is very wealthy for Colombian standards.
Right.
And so you have a lot of expats. They have a large expat community in Medellin and a pretty sizable Black expat community in Medellin. Matter of fact, I met a Sweet Georgia Cafe. Is a Black soul food restaurant in Medellin owned by a Black man from Atlanta. So I ate there several times. So I was, they were there in Medellin. But Bogota, the capital region, I want to say it's probably maybe 1% Black, 2% Black, if that. It's just you're not gonna see us there. Yeah. But it's very cold in Medellin. It's the weather, not Medellin. Medellin's weather is nice. Bogota is very cold and rainy. It reminds you of Seattle. It reminds you of Seattle. We're like in the 50s and 60s. It doesn't get as cold as Seattle, but it's like in the 50s and 60s all year long. And 80% of the time is overcast skies or rainy.
Is it more cosmopolitan in Bogota or no?
It is more cosmopolitan. It's the largest city in Colombia. The only thing that they sorely need, I think, is a train system. It's too big. It's like 9 million people with no train.
Whoa.
All they have is buses. Very good bus system, but it's not adequate enough. It's just too much traffic. You need a train system. Medellin, at least they have a metro in Medellin. It's the only city in Colombia that has a metro, but Bogota, the capital, doesn't. So I taught at a school in Tabio, which is an hour north of Bogota in like a farmland like region. And that was an interesting experience. So assessing my time in Colombia both times, I think I prefer Costa Rica. Colombia is a much needed place to visit.
Right.
But as far as my day, when I had to come back and teach and live there day to day, I didn't care for it too much.
Okay. All right.
First of all, the good thing about it is that it forced me to learn Spanish a lot better than I did because no one speaks English. and they're not gonna even try to speak English to you. You either know Spanish, or I guess you won't be getting anything.
Right.
Now, Costa Rica, of course, they know enough English there. You can get by.
Right.
Colombia,
Right.
don't come to Colombia and not know any Spanish unless you're dealing with Cartagena. Because even in Medellin, there was a lot of areas they did not speak English unless if you're in the expat area, if you're in Poblado, which is that huge expat area in Medellin, they speak English. But in the other neighborhoods in Medellin, no. Any other city like Barranquilla, Santa Marta, Bucaramanga, Bogota, no, you better know Spanish.
Oh, okay.
and fluently.
Now, after you left, so after you left Colombia, did you continue to travel or went back to the States or?
I went back to the States briefly for like 6 weeks. I picked up a part-time job at Amazon. It's just like I just lived to travel. I picked up a part-time job at Amazon because it's Christmas season. They're hiring, right? Because I pretty much left Colombia in November of last year. And so I went to Minneapolis, of all places. Oh my God, I didn't know how cold it could be there.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I didn't know how cold it could be in Minnesota in November and December. It's not the heart of the winter yet. It was brutally cold, like -11, -12. I'm like, oh my God. Thank God I had a car because I could not do Minnesota without a car. But I stayed in Amazon for like 6 weeks just to save more money because I was getting paid in Colombia, so I didn't have to really go into my savings too much because I was teaching. I was getting paid in Colombian pesos. Right. It was still enough for me to live on and pay rent. My rent there was $130. $130. So the good thing about Colombia is dirt cheap.
Boy.
Colombia makes Costa Rica exorbitantly expensive in comparison. So my rent was only $130. That was a great thing. I didn't have to spend or touch my savings too much. So I was able to retain most of my savings. And I just wanted to get a little bit of extra money to go back into my account to replenish my account. So I took a job at Amazon for 6 weeks, saved a few $1,000s, then met my friend in Miami, and we flew to Dubai for New Year's.
Really?
So we spent New Year's in Dubai and brought in the new year in Dubai and was there for like a week. And that was, oh my God, that was my first time in Dubai. That was something.
I bet. I've seen photos.
You saw my photos?
No, I've seen photos of Dubai.
Oh, yeah.
And I can imagine.
It was like the photos don't do it justice. Like you have to really be there. Like the photos do it justice. Just amazing engineering feats. I mean, if you're into architecture like I am, just amazing engineering feats. And of course, this stuff is all new because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, none of it was there. Right. It's just all dead. Yeah. But we did that. We went into the safari. We did the desert safari, which was very close to the Oman border, which is the neighboring country. We rode camels. Picked up the sand, was just so beautiful and fine. It felt like it was finer than sugar, finer than sugar cane. Like the sand was so fine. Like it felt like silk. I've never seen nothing like that. I mean, all the beaches I've been on and everything, I've never felt sand that fine in texture. Wow. And it was huge, just sand dunes everywhere for as far as the eye can see. So that was a surreal experience.
But I imagine that was kind of an expensive.
It was like I needed to work. I need that little 6 weeks in Minnesota. I needed that. Then from there, I went to London, and that wasn't my first time in London. I've been to London a few times. I spent 5 weeks in London and really worked on music. Really worked on my music. Recorded one of the songs that you heard, "Without You," and it was a great productive time there. It was just short. So what I'm doing now is the visa situation in the UK is very difficult because the whole country's in post-Brexit. They're very anti-immigration, and they do have some biases towards. It's a white country. They do have some racial biases there. As you can probably surmise, especially how they treated Meghan Markle and all that stuff. One thing is that it's not as bad as or overt as American racism, but they have microaggressions, what you will call microaggressions. And it's kind of passive aggressive, but they do have some issues with immigration or people that are not from the UK, and also some issues with color. They do, but it's not as aggressive or in your face as the United States, but it's still there. So, I mean, UK is no utopia, but I'm really concentrating on UK for my music. But the thing is, with UK, the visa situation is very difficult. Because if you're not going to school for a student visa, if you're not getting married or a spousal visa, or if you don't have a work visa, then it's very hard to immigrate successfully. So I've decided to actually plan to do the Netherlands instead, which is very close to the UK.
Right.
They have a very special program called the DAF visa for any American can qualify. It's a Dutch American free trade. Basically, if you have a business that you would like to launch and invest into the Netherlands economy or Holland's economy, they will go ahead and award you a business license and an actual resident visa for 2 years. It's expensive. It's 5,700 euro. And plus your business license is another almost 2,000 euro.
Right.
So looking at 8,000 without legal fees. I'm gonna have to get an immigration attorney, I think. But basically, your 90 days that you get in the EU gets extended to 180 while you're applying for this DAF visa. Once it's approved, you get 2 years residency in the Netherlands to open up your business.
Interesting.
If you need an extension, if you want to renew, then that 2 years becomes 5 more years. After that 5 years, if you're still running and operating in the Netherlands, your balance, by the way, cannot fall below 5,700. Once you open up your bank account with Dutch, it can't fall below 5,700. You have to keep a minimum of 5,700 euros in there at all times.
Wait, where's it more expensive to live though? In the UK or
it's more expensive in the UK if you're in London. London is crazy expensive. Once you leave London and go north, because I was in Manchester also. Manchester in the north is considerably cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Scotland is even cheaper. Like we're talking about Glasgow and Edinburgh are much cheaper. But London and southern England is very expensive. And they have a housing shortage, frankly. Yeah. But with me, it's not only the expense, it's also the fact that UK is not immigrant friendly. They're not immigrant friendly at all.
You know what, too? Speaking of immigrants, aren't they really, don't they have a lot of issues with Africans?
They really do a lot of issues with
discrimination against.
They do discrimination, yeah.
Okay. What about the Netherlands, though? What's it like in the Netherlands as far as the racial situation?
The racial situation, I think it might be better than the UK, but they have their fair share because the whole thing. Yeah, you're dealing with a white country.
Right.
It's not the United States, but do know you're dealing with white people.
Right.
That may not be 1,000% thrilled that you're there. Do know that. And I'm not disillusioned by that.
Yeah.
Latin America had no issues. Europe, they're going to have, because these are people of color.
Right.
Europe, they have an issue. But again, it's not like the United States. You don't have to worry about your head getting blown off if you're an African-American man. That's just reality. All these shootings and stuff. You're not necessarily being racially profiled, but there are microaggressions. So you definitely see that in the UK. Netherlands, maybe not as much, but then you have this whole Saint Nick thing for Christmas where they dress up and they put blackface on. Netherlands has a long history with that.
Oh, that's disgusting.
The Netherlands also, as you know, is a colonist country. They was having not as bad as some others, but they were in the slave trade. They did Suriname in South America, and there's some other Dutch colonies in South Africa, as you know. So they've had colonization. As far as living there, I've talked to some people that live in Holland and they're African American. They said they've had no issues, but sometimes they get some microaggressions, like when you sit next to someone on their trains or trams, and then people just get up and move. That type of stuff, and what that's about. Yeah. You know what that's about. So you see stuff like that, but it's not like breaking your life or breaking your soul, like in America. Like in America, they don't go out of your way.
They don't beat the crap out of you either.
Yeah. So it's just all that what you can tolerate. And so my thing is, I'm going to go for this DAF visa because it's convenient to the UK. I can go to the UK whenever I want. Netherlands is only a 4-hour train ride via the tube that goes under the North Sea. So I can go to London whenever I feel like it. I don't have to deal with residency issues in the UK. I can stay in the Netherlands. And not only Netherlands is really central to Paris. You can get to Paris real easily. You can get to Germany. You can get to Cologne, Germany. So it's a lot of other places I can get to and still go to London. So it just makes sense.
Right.
Because the UK, I'm just running to a brick wall and having to come back, and I'm tired of coming back to the States. So my thing is, I'm going to get this DAV visa, and I'm going to stay my butt over there.
Well, let's take some time now and talk about music. And for those of you who didn't listen to the show last week, Luther was my guest host on This Is It with his songs. I think there was 12 or 13 of his songs, which I really enjoyed. And I wanted to have this interview with him so he could tell us a little bit of background about his music. And I may even replay that show, Luther, from last week.
Okay.
Next week after this, so after I'm having the interview with you, then replay that musical show where you were the DJ, because I thought that was really interesting and was very good. So tell us a little bit about your music, your background, and projects. It's all yours. Take it away.
Okay, so as stated at the very beginning of the show, I started taking piano lessons formally when I was 9. I was singing in the church choir at my church in Nashville that I grew up in when I was 7 years old. So I already had a voice, could sing already. But I think my real interest in music started really with the piano. And I started taking lessons at 9, and I was just brilliant at it. I was just a natural to it. At a young age, I could already, play by ear. I could sight read. I've been classically trained. So I took piano lessons for 6 years. And I was actually wanting to be a concert pianist. That was my kind of like Nina Simone. I wanted to actually be a concert pianist. I wasn't really thinking about singing. I just wanted to be a concert pianist. And I listened to one thing my mom said, because I ran it by my mom, because I knew concert pianists required going to school, going to like college. I was actually had my mind on Juilliard or something like that. And I know California has Berkeley School of Music in California. There's a lot of prestigious music schools, but I knew I was going to have to continue my education for music. And I think my mom had said something negative about the concert. I don't really recall what she said, but it was something to the effect that you're not going to really be able to make it in that. I think looking back, she probably would have preferred me to go the concert pianist route. I think probably looking back, she probably would have preferred me to do that versus what I actually ended up trying to do, which was sing. Singing is even more risky than concert pianist. I mean, it's has everything to do with who you know and connections, far more than the concert pianist world, where you're just pretty much just going off of your education and word of mouth, and it's a different audience. The concert pianist world is very serious, and if you're really good, you actually have a better shot of getting through your foot in the door with that versus trying to sing. So I mean, and then of course when I told her that I wanted to sing, she said, well, singers come a dime a dozen. I sure hope you can do something else. She's correct. That was spot on.
Good advice, huh?
Spot on, and she kept saying, well, you need to have a backup plan. You need to have a backup plan. And, she's academically astute. She's a PhD microbiologist, so she didn't want her only son to not be academically astute like her. And I was just all about just my music and my art. And she just kind of just felt I was throwing my life away, so to speak. She didn't see the value in it. At least the concert pianist route or track would have put a music or a master's degree in music behind my name,
right.
Which is what I don't have. But I do have the training, the informal training. Right. So what I did was I moved to New York very young at age 20 and really just started just pounding the pavement and really started trying to save up for demos and put myself in the studio. I didn't have any help, but then I did meet someone, at 21 that kind of really started financially backing me. When he saw, when he saw that I was serious and that the little bit of stuff I'd done on my own with my own money, he started financially backing me. And was paying for my demos and paying for studio time, and I got in national press. I had also had bit parts in movies. I was in Los Angeles briefly. I was in California in the mid '90s, and I was kind of trying to act and do other things. But eventually, I just left that and went to New York to just do music only. And so I met this man that really believed in me, and he financially backed me, and got me as far as he could get me. So at a point when I was 22, 23, I was just actually going to recording studios. I was going to Arista Records on West 57th. I was going to Colombia on Madison Avenue. I remember all these places. So I was a bike messenger, not a bike messenger. They actually had a foot messenger job in New York. Like you could do bike messenger job, or you could do, I'm sure they have the same thing on the West Coast in San Francisco, or you could do like a foot messenger. So I was a foot messenger, and I would package my own demo tapes, my own press kits, and I would literally walk my stuff. I would pretend I am a messenger. I'll be my messenger uniform, and I would literally walk my stuff in to these A&R departments at these labels and give it to the A&R department.
That's smart.
I was in Arista Records. I made sure my stuff got in there. I mailed my stuff, but I also, if the stuff that was in New York City locally, I would just walk my stuff right into the record label. And so eventually Arista Records actually called me. Hasha Gorelli, Senior Vice President of VP of A&R, actually called me. And he said, "Oh my God, the production sucks. The production sucks. The song is trash, but your voice. Oh my God, your voice is amazing." But who did this track? This track is horrible. Never mind that. You sound like a young Byron Stingley, because this was like in the late 90s. You know who Byron Stingley is?
No, I don't.
He's kind of like he was a dance artist at the time. The best comparison to him would probably be like Sylvester. You know Sylvester?
Oh, Sylvester, I know Sylvester from San Francisco, yes.
Yes. So he didn't mention Sylvester, but I knew enough about Byron Stingley to know that he liked those Sylvester type of voices, which is what I had. And he said, "Well, your voice is amazing. I want to see if I can get you in the studio and work with this artist on this song." So that fell apart. But at least that gave me some confidence, because it gave me some confidence. It let me know that, parts of my presentation needed to improve. This is like, I think in 99, parts of my presentation needed to improve, but the voice is there.
Right.
The voice is there. And so I just continued forward, and I actually went in the studio and recorded like a whole set of new songs, like 9 songs, a whole album worth of stuff. And one of the songs on there was Get the Hell Out. You played that actually on last Saturday. Song. Yeah. Yeah. So and that demo actually landed me my first record deal. I had got with a Black agency. It was a Black woman that owned the agency in New Jersey, in Jersey City. And she had been shopping my demo around to everybody that she knew. And it was a small label in Hackensack, New Jersey, that listened to it. And they offered me a deal. And I signed. Unfortunately, 2001, 9/11 happened. I was 23 years old. I think they had a lot of their financing was from the Middle East, a lot of Middle Eastern dealings, and 9/11 happened, and that just blew up everything in terms of their financing, in terms of, because they was really salty with Americans when that whole 9/11 thing happened.
Right.
And even though this is a Black company in New Jersey, they didn't want nothing to do with America, so they cut off the funding. Of course, my album didn't go anywhere. They was actually trying to put me in the studio and record me and all this other stuff. And their marketing plan was excellent, because it was with digital marketing, which was ahead of its time. This is the year 2001. Nobody was doing digital marketing. Everything was CDs at that time. And they was trying to do digital marketing streaming. And it was like, "Luther, I know it's not conventional, but this is where the music industry is going. This is where it's going." I couldn't see it at the time. But if they had been successful, I would have been ahead of the curve, because nobody was doing that in 2001. It was all physical CDs.
Right.
So no, they want to release my stuff digitally, where you had to stream it. But no, when 9/11 happened, that messed up everything. So again, on my own, and it's a non-exclusive contract, so I could still sign with anybody, but that company is done. That just ruined the company. So It's been a long journey, long
Yes.
journey. I
Wow.
have done several American Idols. I got to the final round. And that was the one I did in which one? That was in St. Louis. I got to the final round and got cut. Didn't act
Oh,
and
wow.
got so, but and again, like the feedback. Oh my God, because I did what I did. My audition song was Mariah Carey, "We Belong Together,"
Mm.
and in her key. So I can hit all those notes. And there was
Right.
this guy, what? So yeah, I think probably because I knew what I had in me and I knew what I was doing was very valuable. I had to get the right person to listen to it and
Right.
the right and I had to get exposure and for to me, like giving up on my music is giving up on myself.
Right.
And I worked too hard my entire 20s. Like my 20s, I worked very, very hard. It's not like I woke up yesterday or last week or 5 years and decided to do music. I've been working at this diligently for probably a quarter of a century, honestly, really a quarter of a century,
Wow.
like since the late 90s.
Right.
So I'm not going to give up. I was told when I was 23 that my deal was not in America because the United States music scene was changing. It was less vocal driven and less songs driven and more gimmicky
Right.
and it was more gimmicky. And what I was doing was coming from very old schools. It was like my sound is more harkens to the 70s, the 80s, the early 90s. Like you really had to be about musicality and vocals. And that's how I was packaging myself. That's how my material is now to this day. And in the late 90s, there was a shift in the music industry where they wasn't looking for that. They was looking for whatever BS they're on right now. That's what they was looking. It was already starting to shift that way around 2000 and 2001. It was already shifting that way. From post 9/11 to now, it's been on that. And so I was told at 23 in the year 2000, Luther, you're probably better off going to Europe. They will get you over there. They will get you over there. They appreciate real talent, which you have, and they will really love you over there. You need to go
Right.
there.
Right.
And I just never really acted on it. Europe was scary to me. I'm 23 in my 20s. I'm not picking up and moving to Europe by myself.
Yeah.
I did New York. That was scary enough. I'm supposed to pick up and go to Europe. So I just never really acted on it. I never had the cojones to do that, to do precisely that until I was past 40.
Right.
And so I finally did that. But now it's just I have to get the visa situation where I can just stay over there because 5 weeks in London was nice, but it's not enough. I need to stay there and not, or at least if I'm in Netherlands, I can go to London whenever I want.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I'm trying to get back over there solely for that reason, not for I'm Blaxitting to Europe because I just love Europe. I do like Europe a lot better than the States, but I know it's not perfect. I know it's not perfect. I know there's a colonization history there. I know they do have microaggression issues with immigrants from anywhere that's outside of Europe, and especially immigrants of color. I know that, but
Right.
I'm really there for my music. And
Right.
when I was in London, the reception I got in London, I'm talking about this past time in January and February, was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I felt like I was at home. I felt like I was at home, Devin. I felt like I belonged there. So everything that was telling me 20 something odd years ago was correct. It's just that now London's a more hostile environment in terms of trying to stay there. It's
Are
post.
you working on new music now, or are you just trying to get over the things that you've
Both,
already packaged? Are you working on
both,
something new?
both. As far
Oh,
as recording, because you're asking about recording studio stuff. As far
right.
as recording, I'm trying to update update songs that I already have. Like "Get the Hell Out," I think is a nice song, but it could use a revamping. It could use like
Ah,
yeah. You don't think so?
mm, I like it.
Without you,
It
without
sounds
you,
new.
it sounds okay. Well,
Yeah.
without you, the very first song you heard was an old song from '99 that I redid.
Oh,
You know,
really?
so that was just done in London.
Wait,
I mean, when
what's the one that I don't have that you didn't get to me?
uh,
Play something? Play.
it
What is it?
it was "Let You Go." "Let You Go" is
Oh,
beautiful.
Let You Go. That's the
Yeah,
one I don't have, right?
yeah. You don't have that one. I mean, I can send it to you today, actually, but yeah, I don't.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm kind of I would like to revamp some older songs that I have, as well as record new stuff.
Right.
But my concentration really is live performance. I really want to be a great live performer, and I'm incorporating piano in a lot of what I'm doing. From what I'm seeing is that the London audiences don't want me to just sing; they want me to play and sing, kind of like a Nina Simone type act or a John Legend type act. They really want me to do. They appreciate the musicality. They appreciate it in the United States as well, but they really love it in London. I'm getting love from America. It's just in London, it's just really intense.
Yeah, I think it's just different in Europe.
It's different. And then I think they love the fact that I'm American as well.
Oh, true.
So I think all those work in my favor. It's just, sometimes in life things happen when they're supposed to.
Right.
And it's hard to analyze that, like, well, why didn't this happen 20? Well, you didn't have the guts, you didn't have the courage to do what you're doing now. You didn't. You was only 20 some years old. I didn't have the money. London's so expensive, and I definitely didn't have it then. Even though I had financial backing, he wouldn't have sponsored me plane tickets and stuff over to the UK unless we were in an active deal with somebody like Virgin Records. Virgin Records UK had my stuff as well. If they had actually offered a deal, then yeah. But to just send me there on speculation, no, he wouldn't have paid for that.
Right. Wow. Wow. Well, I'm like I said, I'm gonna I think I'm gonna replay the show from last week, the following week after this, so that people can get an opportunity to listen to your songs. And tell me, where can people go if they really want to get your music or whatever? Do you have a website, or where can people find you?
So if you subscribe to any major streaming service, I'm on Spotify, and you would just type in Luther McGinnis. Last name is spelled McGinnis. So you can search me under Spotify. A lot of my material, or majority of my material for sale, is on Apple. If you have Apple, type it in a search, it'll pop up every album that I've released. Yeah, so Apple and Spotify are the main, and I'm on Amazon. Again, just type in Luther McGinnis. If you type in a general search under my name, everything I have out there will pop up.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. And in parting here, do you have any words of wisdom or advice or anything that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Particularly with Blaxiting, you have to
anything, music or whatever, just in life, not necessarily Blaxit. That's fine.
I would say that this applies to music as well.
Okay.
You have to follow your heart. You have to follow your heart, and I've learned this over the years. It's less about what others think of you and more about your assignment. There's a reason why you're here, and once you tap into that, everything is clear.
Well, that's excellent advice. And I thank you so much for joining us today on This Is It on Blaxit Radio. And I wish you much success in your musical career and in your life.
Thank you so much, Devin. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Luther. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.